Okay, good morning. Michael, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you great.
Okay, if it sounds a little awkward, it's because there's a delay, so I'm trying to get used to this.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. All right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you all. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, the meeting of the directors of the Moynihan Station Development Corporation for Friday, September 26, 2014. I'd like to note for the record that this meeting is being webcast. Would also like to note that for the record that the directors have received the relevant written materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Consistent with the policy of our parent corporation, we welcome public comment on the items on our agenda. And after each item is presented and comments are received from the directors, we will allow members of the public to provide their comments. All comments should address only the items that are under consideration. And now, before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I would like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. If so, I would ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure for the record. We will then be sure that you recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to any of the items. Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move forward with the agenda. But before we do, can we go around the table and just introduce ourselves so we'll know who's at the table?
Yes. Michael Evans, President of the Moynihan Station Development Corporation.
Tokumbo Shobuale. I am the Chief Operating Officer of the New School University.
Joe Chan, Executive Vice President for Real Estate and Public-Private Partnerships at Empire State Development.
Richard Dorado, Counsel to Moynihan Station Development Corporation.
Andrew Lynn, Director of Planning, Port Authority.
Bruno Signorelli, Port Authority, Program Director from Moynihan Station.
Paul Williams, President DASNY and Director of MSDC.
Michael, are there any people on the telephone by any chance?
There are some people that have dialed in.
They're having a problem with the dial-in, so I'm not sure.
So we're hearing that there may be having some issues with the dial-in right now.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move forward with the agenda. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting of July 10th, 2014. You've had the information in front of you, so are there any questions, comments, additions, or deletions to the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, let's move forward with the next part of the agenda. Michael, you will now present the President's report. It's for information only, and no vote will be required on this.
Thank you, Victor. I'm going to be pretty brief before handing it over to Bruno for a more detailed discussion of the work that's taken place since July, but the director should know that we've had an extremely productive period since the last meeting. We now have nearly 57% of the project complete. 70% of the steel for the new concourse is now in place, and we are on track to have all of the steel in place by the end of January as planned. It's almost hard to believe that that kind of critical 18-month construction window of the steel erection that we talked about for so long is actually nearing completion in a few months from now. And it's a testament to the great work of our contractor Skanska, our construction management team, the STA joint venture, the Port Authority team who could not be operating at a higher level, and also to the railroads, to their credit, with which the coordination has been fantastic on not just a monthly or weekly basis, but on literally a daily, almost hourly basis in terms of real-time communication, problem solving, proactive troubleshooting. It's really been fantastic, and frankly a model for projects going forward. Before I turn it over to Bruno, I want to make a quick introduction. Kevin, if you would come up to the table for a second. Our project executive from the Tishman AECOM STV joint venture, Tony Cracchiola, will be shifting to part-time and then transitioning to a more of an on-call advisory basis as he's going to take fuller advantage of his retirement years. But in his place, we're transitioning in Kevin Pierce from STV, who has an enormous amount of experience over the years, including working down at World Trade Center, which is about as complicated of a project as the region has seen in the last decade and a half, but also has some great experience with transit properties out on the West Coast over the years, including Seattle and Southern California. So I want to introduce Kevin, let him say a couple of words before Bruno talks more about the project progress.
Michael, thank you. I just want to thank MSDC and the Port Authority for the opportunity to be part of this project. I mean, this is a very, very exciting project. It's transformational from many different standpoints for the region, for the city, for Amtrak. So I'm pleased to be here. There's a very good team in place, as Michael mentioned, the contractor, the Port Authority, who I've done extensive work with over the past 10 years, and the joint venture. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I really look forward to working with everybody to make this a complete success. Thank you.
And I do want to just say a quick note that Tony Cracchiola has been an exemplary part of the team and has been a phenomenal member, and he has agreed and been very generous to agree that he will remain a project resource going forward, even though his actual kind of days, full-time days on the job will decrease over the next coming months. But he will remain a contact that we can reach out to, that we can bring on to help troubleshoot and deal with issues. So again, he's been fantastic, and we all owe him a great debt of gratitude. With that, let me turn it over to Bruno Signorelli, Program Director for the Port Authority for Moynihan Station, to talk a little bit more detail about what has happened since July and where we are headed in the next few months.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. As Michael said, project's 57% complete. I'd like to point out that last weekend was a 2-year mark since the commencement of work within the train shed. In this 2-year period, we received 65 full weekend outages and 8 partial weekend outages. Contractually, we were obligated to give 32 outages per year.
Can you just slow down a little bit? Contractually,
Sure.
we will.
So want me to start over? Or?
No, it's all right.
Okay. We have actually received 64 outages in this 2-year period, which hasn't passed the 65. Since the last board meeting in mid-July, we have received all 8 of our scheduled weekend track outages. During this period, we have installed steel from tracks 14 through 16. These tracks are the most difficult closures to receive within the train shed because they split the station. And they were scheduled over a year in advance. Also, this area was challenging to tase because it was the first time we tied into existing West End concourse and had to install new staircases prior to any demolition occurring. Outside the train shed, we have completed 90% of the North Plaza steel at 33rd and 8th Avenue. We have finished the waterproofing of the subsurfaces on the north half of the 8th Avenue steps and began reinstalling the refurbished stones. We are continuing with the relocation of the subway steps to the North Plaza. The installation of the MEP equipment in the Farley basement and the rooms is continuing. And we began the reframing of the south half of 33rd Street for the connecting corridor. Looking ahead, all the structural steel for the West End concourse is to be installed by the end of January, and this is inclusive of decking and concrete. Finishes on the southern half of the West End concourse are to begin in November, so it's a new phase of the project. The north half of the 8th Avenue steps are to be installed by mid-November. The North Plaza, inclusive of the subway steps, relocation is to be completed by January, and that's excluding finishes. And the south half of the 33rd Street framing is to be completed by April.
All right, thank you, Bruno. There's going to be some real progress too as the steps, the granite steps, start to come back this month and get put back in place on the north side of the grand staircase. And Bruno and I were joking that we wish it was possible to get video conference hookup down on the concourse, because just in a few weeks you'll be able to walk the entire length of the new concourse, and it's pretty spectacular to see. So welcome all the directors to come view the progress in person when they're able. I just want to make one other quick note that I mentioned at the last board meeting that we were taking proactive steps to mitigate certain risks that we anticipate in the last 2 years of the project, especially in the lead up to the opening of the new concourse. And those involve integration of systems with the existing railroad systems, fire alarm systems, security systems, plumbing, a range of things. We have, true to our word, started that effort, and in fact have a working group led by the Port Authority and the construction management team tackling individual issues and creating working groups with the railroads. They are reporting to the Construction Steering Committee every month about their progress, and in fact doing a deep dive into an issue, a different issue each month for the Construction Steering Committee, and then keeping that issue that they do a deep dive on a list and providing an update every month. And so at the next board meeting, I will bring in some of the members of that team to talk about the work that they're doing and how we are well in advance making sure that we mitigate any risks that could cause trouble towards the end of the project when you're trying to open the concourse on time. That concludes the President's report.
Thank you, Michael. For the directors, any thoughts, comments, or questions? Okay. Let me just say, do want to convey my thanks to Tony. I haven't been with the board this long, but I know you've made a lot of progress because I used to talk to my predecessor once in a while about what's going on here. So a lot of good progress, and just want to say thanks to Tony for his assistance and his willingness to actually continue to be a point of contact. And then to Kevin, I do want to say welcome aboard. You're now a point person there, it sounds like, so we'll be relying on you.
Thank you.
Let me turn over to the public. If there is any member of the public that would like to offer any thoughts or comments, let's go ahead and do that. Okay. With that, let me ask Michael to continue with the next agenda item. That's your request for authorization to amend the contract with Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill.
Thank you, Victor. We talked a lot about the progress on phase 1 of the project, and as a result of that project, it's now time to turn our attention to the next phases of the project, and we need to begin work in order to be able to advance those elements into construction, ideally in the near term. That involves significant design work. However, we have an excellent A&E team on board. Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill has been the architect of record on the project since the late 1990s when they were selected through a competitive procurement, and in fact created 80% design drawings in 2006 for the train hall. We are now at the stage where we need to review, revisit those design drawings, update and repackage them so that we will be able to move forward with the construction of the second phase on a reasonable time frame, subject to available funding. The SOM team is the architect of record on phase 1 of the project, and earlier in the contract history, the directors amended the contract and restated it with SOM in order to provide for their repackaging of those phase 1 scope elements into bid-ready documents, which are what we put out to bid, what Skanska is now constructing. SOM remains a part of the team as part of the construction advisory services phase of their contract, and they have been an excellent partner on the project thus far. They have an enormous amount of experience on the building and familiarity with the building, and a very deep team. It's a team that extends not only through Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, but to a very extensive sub-consultant list that has been involved in the project for more than a decade. And I want to especially point out the structural engineers from Severud and the mechanical team from JB&B, who have been integral to design development over the years and have also been excellent partners on the Phase 1 project. In 2012 and 2013, under the direction of the board, SOM worked with MSDC and the Port Authority, as well as Amtrak, to create conceptual plans based on the 2006 design drawings, but adapted to Amtrak's new program requirements. And those will be the basis of design for the next phase. We have willing partners with Amtrak who will be an integral part of this design phase, which we anticipate will take 12 months and will be broken into 5 separate stages: preliminary design criteria, early action packages, and then 50%, 75%, and 100% train haul package design levels. To summarize, for the directors, SOM's proposal to do all of this work in 12 months, which I should note is an extremely aggressive design schedule for final design on any project, and certainly one of this size. Their proposal is $11.6 million. And the Port Authority has reviewed this and finds it to be extremely competitive, and in fact would be well below any expected proposal by any frame of analysis that the Port Authority uses on major construction projects where a new A&E team could be brought in. So it is a recommendation of the MSDC staff and the Port Authority Engineering Department to move forward with the repackaging of the 2006 plans in order to save an enormous amount of time on the design process and an enormous amount of money. Port Authority estimates a savings of in excess of $30 million. With a 10% standard contingency, we're asking for an amendment of the contract to $12.8 million. On the current contract of $13.7, which includes all of the Phase 1 design work and construction advisory services, that would now bring the new total to $26.6 million. Let me note, however, that those numbers reflect the amended and restated contract that was authorized by the directors in 2010. Over the late 1990s and early 2000s, more than $40 million was spent on this contract on design work. So there's an enormous amount of money that has already been spent to create 80% designs, and that is why we will be using them as the basis for the next round of design. With that, I will open it to the directors for questions, and Bruno Signorelli can also answer technical questions, as he led the Port Authority's review of both the 2006 plans and the current SOM proposal, and then Richard Otto from ESD Legal has been advising on any procurement issues.
Just wanted to check with the council that, again, given this is essentially a continuation, that has been confirmed, that this is in accordance with, there's no procurement issues with regard to continuing a contract of this size. Given that their expertise, it seems like a good savings for the board, for the station, but just wanted to confirm that's been fully reviewed.
Satisfies the criteria for a proper single source contract because of the experience that they have.
That was my question as well. Where did you fit this within the state procurement laws? But that's what I thought it was going to be, and it certainly fits that category.
Just another question about, there's a balance, small and broad context, of roughly $357,000 of contingency from the first phase. Is that being rolled into this phase? And so
They're still doing work on the first phase, and through construction advisory services, and so I think we will keep that right now with the first phase. But any balance at the end, we would roll into this if necessary. Ideally, we don't spend contingency, but we'll preserve that.
And then the final question, you just mentioned that 12 months is aggressive for a design of this scope. What are your concerns regarding actually meeting that deadline within 12 months?
I think the biggest concerns are, I would say there are two. One is that as we proceed with visual inspections and some selective demolition of elements of the Farley building in order to assist the A&E team to make the most informed design choices available, you never know what you might uncover. And I would say in particular, understanding the condition of the of the steel over the train hall and what modifications may be necessary there. That is certainly a large risk. I think Renaud would agree. And then secondly, this will require very tight turnaround timelines from our railroad partners, Amtrak. They've been advised of this. They are ramping up to be supportive and to be very cooperative partners in final design and to turn things around as quickly as possible, but that is always an issue. I would just say that it's another reason why we need to start now and not delay any further, because we do have to be cognizant that it's aggressive, but it's the time to get going.
And regarding the funds for demolition, some of the destructive testing that needs to be done to assess the condition of the canopy steel, that is included within this contract or within the Phase 1 contract?
We are putting together a selective demolition assessment now, but it will be minimal work, and will either be carried out by a contractor brought in by OGS, who runs the building, depending on the scope, or potentially could be carried out by ScanScope. It's very limited in nature.
I would just on the Amtrak coordination, I guess I would just ask that you keep the directors apprised of that. Obviously, to the extent that we can be helpful in elevating issues, you have a very strong relationship, but given that critical dependency, it would be good to know about any delays as soon as possible.
Yes, and ultimately, we're going to need to put in place something, I think, similar to what we did with Phase 1, with a high-level group that can kind of oversee and make sure that things stay on track.
Michael, I did have kind of a related question on the 12-month issue. It does seem pretty aggressive, and I would ask likewise, as you go through the next 12 months, that if you see that that's going to slide or slip somehow, that you just keep us apprised of that?
Yes,
Okay.
we will do that.
Any other thoughts or comments from the directors? Okay,
I would say I think
let me provide you-
I would say I think it's great to that again, given the success in the first phase, we're able to put these funds to good use to advance the project to keep the momentum. And I think that's been one of the critical components of the approach that you've taken and your predecessors taken, is to have manageable chunks, but to keep the momentum, which I think over the long run will save tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, but also maintain progress to get to a completed project.
Thank you, Tacumbo.
Absolutely. At some point, we need to make sure the public's aware of this, that we are saving millions. So we kind of need to figure that out. How do we keep the public informed so that they know the successes? You've outlined quite a few successes, and this is just another one. So let me give the opportunity to the public if they want to make any comments or provide any thoughts to us. Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any in opposition? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved. Michael, moving on with the agenda, you are scheduled to ask for a request to authorize an amendment to the contract with PV Americas for architectural engineering, design, and construction phase services.
Thank you, Victor. The directors will recall painfully the experience that we had in the summer of 2013 when our closure for construction of the fan rooms in Sea Yard was met with delay due to fracturing of the northern Penn Station retaining wall, which led to an on-the-fly redesign and a significant change order and use of contingency in order to get that project completed. We therefore think it is now prudent, prior to advancing the construction of the E-Yard structures at the south side of the plant, to have PB Americas, the design consultant, review the designs and make any adjustments necessary so that we have an efficient construction period and do not have to make significant change orders in the midst of that project. The Port Authority has worked with PB to develop a scope of services involving this redesign effort, and so the directors are asked to authorize an amendment to the contract to cover this amount of work. The PB team has been very good, and Bruno can attest to that. We have a current contract amount of nearly $3.6 million, and this is a request for an addition of $144,000 to that contract to cover this work. Adding a 10% contingency to that of $14.4 thousand, that would take an amended contract total up to $3.7 million. Again, I think this is a prudent step to take, and it's something that the Port Authority has worked closely with the design team on, so that we can, when the time is right, which we think will be in the near-term time frame, move forward with the E-Yard structures, just as we did with C-Yard.
Yeah. Any comments from the director?
Again, we're taking this course of action under single source concept.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Also, all the primary contracts in the project have best efforts goals regarding the utilization of minority or women-owned enterprises. Can we get a report on where that effort stands at some point in the future?
Yes, I will plan that for the next meeting.
Great.
Okay. Any other thoughts from the directors here? Okay, let me provide an opportunity for the public to comment. And I don't hear anything, so I will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. So now I would like to entertain a motion to conduct an executive session pursuant to paragraph H of subdivision 1, section 105 of the New York State Open Meeting Laws, more specifically to discuss real estate negotiation issues relating to the development of the James A. Farley Building.
So moved.
I need a motion.
Second.
Okay. Let's move into executive session.
Just 1 second, Victor.
Yes.
Victor, it'll take us just a second to switch over.
Okay. I guess we're back into our regular session. For the record, I'd like to note that there were no votes taken during the executive session. And if there is no other business to attend to, I do want to say thanks to all of you for being here, for participating, and would call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
And I'm sure there's no opposition to that, so let's go ahead and adjourn. And once again, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again sometime. Thank you.